am so excited today because we have the personal organizer extraordinaire, Gayle Goddard, with us today. And she's also known as the Clutter Fairy. Welcome, Gayle, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm just going to go ahead and admit it to you and to my viewers. I need help with clutter. So with the holidays coming, you know, I've got holiday parties, I've got holiday guests. How can me and others like me get their houses decluttered for the holidays?
Well, usually there's a really short time frame. You've got 2 weeks before Thanksgiving and you suddenly panic. Yes. Oh my gosh, my house is a disaster. What am I going to do?
That's me. I'm in panic mode right now.
All right. So you cannot probably get the whole job done in the next 2 weeks if you're actually going to go to work and have a life in addition to decluttering.
And sleep.
Right, and sleep, yeah. So you really have to focus, you have to prioritize on what's most important.
Okay.
When you're having guests coming, then what's most important is the public areas, where the guests are going to be. So you want to go through and look at your house and pretend your mother-in-law has showed up to your house. And she's walked in the door and she's opened the door, and you cannot imagine how it changes what you see when you pretend to be your own mother-in-law and walk through the house.
Yes, I'm sure.
It really makes you see it differently. Go through the public areas and say, if I was a guest coming through the front door, going into the guest bedroom, going into the guest bath, going into the living room, maybe going into the kitchen if somebody's going to come and help you cook, what are they going to see when they come through their room? So go through and look with those sort of public eyes to your space so you can see stuff that has become second nature, it's become part of the landscape for you, but you can at least identify what's going to suddenly jump out and glare at them. Then focus on those public areas and ignore the master bedroom, for instance, because you're probably not going to let them in there.
And that's what we all tend to ignore.
Don't let them in the office maybe, because you're not going to go into the office.
Okay.
But focus on those public areas. Then once you decide what those public areas are, you want to go through and look at the exposed surfaces. So now's probably not the time to open the cabinet and try to organize inside the cabinet.
Okay.
Now's the time to go to the kitchen counter, for instance, and go through the surface of the kitchen counter and see what is covering your surface so that it's in the way, it's visible, it's visual clutter that people see when they come in. The same for the living room. If you go into the living room and you look at the coffee table, for instance, what kind of disaster is it on the coffee table? What's on the floor in front of the couch? When they sit down on the couch, what are they going to see in their visual landscape? Focus on those areas, and that is the shorter, faster way to get ready for the upcoming visual holiday for your guests.
What are some basic rules we can use all year round when it comes to clutter?
I think the most basic rule that everybody should learn to handle for themselves is the mail.
Okay.
When I work with individual clients and when I teach my classes, I always say mail is evil, because it comes every day and there's more of it every day.
Well, my husband says that because of all the shopping catalogs that you get. He already thinks it's evil.
That's exactly right. And
he would agree with you.
And read in the mailbox. So I always tell people that you really have to handle the mail every day, every other day.
Okay.
If you ignore it, if you get 10 pieces a day, that's easy enough, and you can spend 3 minutes and you can go through, you know your own mail, you know what your bills are, you know what is a junk mail piece, you know what the newspaper inserts are. It's very easy to sort through the 10 pieces and go, that's trash, that's recycled, that's shredding, that has to go to be paid.
Okay.
And you can do that in a really short period of time.
Okay.
But if you wait to deal with those 10 pieces for a week, then at the end of the week you have 70 pieces.
Exactly.
And then suddenly it's overwhelming. And then it goes onto a pile on a table and gets ignored. So it's really important for people to at least look through their mail every other day. If you're stretching it, you can probably do it twice a week. But if you let it go for any longer, you're going to have a disastrous pile in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it does. It piles up quickly, definitely.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that you want to, at the very least, return things to the room where they're supposed to be.
Okay.
Like if you have a bunch of kids' toys in the living room, get them back in the kids' room. If you have mail or bills but you don't pay in the living room, go put them in the office where you pay for them. If you have dishes, take them out of the living room and put them in the kitchen. That kind of very basic, you know, it creates clutter because things end up in the wrong rooms and then they become piles because they're not in the room where they're normally stored.
Okay.
So they sort of undo your storage processes because they're not where they're supposed to be to begin with. So that's something that you can do easily. If you just return things into the room where they're supposed to be, it'll be easier for you to clean up that room and reorganize that room when you do have time to do the whole organization thing.
Okay, that sounds good.
One of the things that I tell people is they can go through once a week with 2 bags. Walk through the rooms and look for trash and pick up 10 pieces of trash, throw them in the bag, that's going to go out. Then use the second bag to pick up 10 things that you're ready to get rid of.
Okay, that's
Maybe
a good
you're going to
plan.
take clothes out of the closet. Maybe you're going to take kids' toys off the floor. Maybe you're going to take a piece of office equipment that you don't use anymore, an old calculator, the broken whatever. Pick up the things that are going to be given away, put them in the bag, and take them out as well. So
that is great advice. I'm already thinking of things I need to get rid of.
Exactly.
I've got my mental notes right here.
And the thing is, if you do that every week, but you only have to worry about 10 pieces at a time, it's not an overwhelming task. It doesn't take an unreasonable amount of time, but you can make headway every week in clearing out some of the stuff.
And you feel better. You feel lighter immediately. And I think that's perfect. So 10 items.
All right, so the next piece of advice is to organize in small bites. The reason people call me usually is because they're overwhelmed. The house is a disaster. They walk into the room and they their eyes bug out in their head and they just think, oh my God, I cannot possibly do this mountain. And they freeze and they turn around and they go back out of the room. The only way to tackle it to prevent being overwhelmed is to come and do it in little bitty pieces. I'm just going to clear the desk today. I'm just going to clear out this one file drawer. I'm just going to clear off the dining room table. Do it in little bitty pieces. And the trick to staying ahead is that you have to do that at a faster pace than you're creating it on the back end.
Right, exactly.
In order to make headway, you have to do it in small bites, but often enough that you are staying ahead of how fast your family's creating it on the other end.
But I think once you start doing it, it makes you feel so good that it almost becomes addictive, that you want to get rid of the stuff.
It's true.
So I think that's kind of your first step in the process is you just got to get started.
You just got to get started. And it gets easier over time. As you make those decisions and you learn to ask yourself, do I like this? Am I using it? Do I really want this? Have I replaced it? Do I have 5 of these? As you ask these questions of yourself, and you learn to answer them and let go of things, in the beginning it's really anxiety ridden for people to make those decisions.
Oh, absolutely.
But as you make them and go through the experience of choosing and letting go, and then the week goes by and you haven't thought about it, you really get more comfortable as time goes by. And when I work with people, I find that it's really, really difficult in the beginning, particularly because by the time they called me, it's a huge job. So they're really overwhelmed and they're freaked out. And we start going through the stuff, and there's a point in time at which you can see the mental switch in their head where we've been interacting long enough and it's so stressful, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get it. And then it stops being stressful and it stops being difficult. And that really happens for people at home without me as well. If you just let yourself do it enough,
right, you start feeling better. You
get comfortable with the process and you get rewards from the process, and it becomes easier and easier over time.